industry view, what are the things that the industry needs to do? But what about the other stakeholders in this situation, kind of the customers and even though I'm not sure they should be a stakeholder, they kind of are, the claims management companies. What do you think they're going to think about the announcement, and what are they going to do now?
So I think for CMCs, I think there is a clear theme and message from the FCA in the announcement that they're trying to divert people away from using CMCs and making the scheme as simple as possible so that customers are able to complete it themselves, opt in, and receive the redress without the use of a CMC. I think CMC behaviour is likely to follow the pattern of what it has been over the last 12 months, where they're picking up on other things such as affordability, maybe whether forbearance options were offered as part of collections, vulnerability, and those areas are outside the scope of the scheme, and so will need to be dealt with within the usual 8 weeks. I think the point for consumers is the priority being given to those that complain before the scheme starts. It's likely that we'll see a surge in complaints over the next couple of months with people wanting to get to the front of the queue. And so for businesses, being prepared for that, resourcing areas like telephony and other business areas that they're going to be getting inquiries on, and being able to triage those cases coming in is going to be important over the next couple of months.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the getting a decent IVR in place and diverting those customers who want to talk about and complain about this in the call centre is going to be a big part of any solution, and making sure that the resourcing is off to the side so that you don't struggle with your SLAs on your kind of business as usual stuff. Now, in the announcement the FCA made, they seem to say, look, it's a very simple calculation to determine the payouts. It's something that can be automated, which almost kind of got down the road of this will be a quick and easy thing to do. But in the next breath, they also called out the cost of remediation, excluding the redress, is estimated to be £2.8 billion. Doing some quick maths, that means that the average expected cost of running the redress scheme for the opt-in population of, I think it was 11.7 million at 85%, is £240 per agreement. If this is straightforward as it's made out to be, why do you think there'd be a multi-billion-pound operational price tag to go with the redress scheme?
So I think completing a remediation program or redress scheme such as this always comes with significant operational costs. I think the expectation to go back to 2007, that requirement to go and extract potentially archived data, there might be a need to be in contact with multiple brokers to try and identify agreements. Those processes are complicated and in the majority will be quite manual in terms of trying to identify that data. I think the requirement, the opt-in processes and the need to trace customers, it's going to drive a significant customer contact requirement. So mailing, outbound engagement with customers, I mentioned earlier, it's going to drive inbound queries, relatively short time frames to send out all of those mailings. It's quite a big spike in demand, and you're going to need to be able to resource that and deliver it accurately as well. Now, when it comes to things like making payments, there's a real need to complete appropriate KYC checks. Customers won't have been a customer of a certain firm for several years, potentially. Key customer identification points are out of date or incorrect. Those will need to be brought up to date to be able to ensure you're paying the right person and identifying the right person. Scenarios such as, whilst we believe that fundamentally this is likely to be an 80% what we're calling happy path process, where the use of a effective technology solution is the way forward to be able to deliver this accurately and most cost effectively. That's where it's able to automate customer correspondence, interpret responses, process payments, everything from start to finish, essentially. But there will be scenarios where customers are vulnerable, there's been collections and recovery activities, deceased parties, where there will need to be some human involvement to either put that back into the automated process, or it might be even more complex where they need experienced case handlers to be able to carry out the review of the case and work it cradle to grave, essentially. So all of those elements, despite it being, we believe the best solution is automation technology to be able to deliver the majority of it, there will be significant costs associated to it.
Well, thanks, Mike. So I want to put the question of preparedness now out to the audience. We've heard about what is now expected, but I know from conversations that we've been having, there will be some organisations out there that have already started the preparation for the redress scheme, and some are actually quite a long way down the line. So Diane, if we could put poll 2 up, and with this one, we've kind of called out a number of things that would relate to preparedness. And rather than kind of just tick one, if you could tick all that are applicable to your organisation and the stage in the process you're at, that would be great. And again, we'll give this a minute or so before we call for the answers. Right then, Dan, let's see what the answers are. A real interesting mix there. So some people kind of almost waiting on half of, in fact, of our respondees waiting on kind of getting clarity from the FCA before doing anything, and others then kind of progressing down that path of starting off with your data availability, making sure it's all there, defining your in-scope customer population, and then actually starting, or at least defining the kind of the tracing and customer contact strategy. Interesting, and it kind of aligns quite nicely to some of the conversations that we've been having as well. Mike, to help organisations that are just starting to define their processes, and for those who are well down the line to kind of validate they have all their bases covered, can you give us an overview of what the TCC Momenta Recordsure house view is on what needs to be done now ahead of the consultation conclusion, please?
Yeah, so I think the key, everything starts really with the data to be able to understand the customer population and who's in scope. So reviewing that data availability back to 2007, checking the agreements, potentially looking through, completing samples on some of those sales documents or sales practices, some of the contracts to see whether adequate disclosure was in place, but also whether gathering the information on what interest rates were applied and what commissions were paid, and being able to have that data in a suitable format that it can be placed into and identify the scope of the customers. Designing the approach to customer tracing and customer contact. So the tight timelines, as I mentioned, mean that that process is going to have to be up and running pretty much from when the scheme goes live, considering the 3-month window. So having that locked down in terms of this is how we're going to identify a customer, this is how we're going to trace the customers, this will be our methodology, and designing the most efficient but also fair to customers in terms of that process. We would suggest having an idea around a system, or building a system, or sourcing a system that can automate the large majority of cases deemed in scope. It is a relatively straightforward process, as the FCA has tried to do, but having that automation capability, I think, is critical. Estimating the overall exposure based on the FCA's current description of what redress should look like, I think that's a requirement. And staffing up for the start surging complaints. So we do anticipate increased volumes coming in the next couple of months, and carrying out that scenario planning and resource modelling to see that you're going to be able to deal with the volumes and be prepared for go live. And it was all very pleasing to see it. Reading the FCA's letter to firms broadly aligns to some of our recommendations about taking some of these steps now.